Another victory here to start off their series against Phoenix1. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty of it all, just a quick update over on NALCS1. TSM completely trounced Immortals in Game 1. They are currently in Champion Select for Game 2, so Immortals looking to extend that series. We'll see if they can do it. But now, focusing back in at the series at hand. Interesting draft here.
Yeah.
Very interesting draft just because we see the likes of the Renekton come back out. So Seraph continuing to showcase an incredibly diverse champion pool coming out of that top lane, keeping people guessing more than anything about what, if anything, he's willing to play.
Yeah, this is a very much win lane, win game comp, and with a lot of like early playmaking. You have the Renekton who's supposed to win lane, your bot lane's supposed to win lane, you have a Nidalee who's going to go invade the other jungler and try and snowball these lanes, as well as a Lissandra who just wants to get into these side lanes for dives, and so they have this very, very early game focused comp.
It's looking like it's going back to the very old meta in Season 3, Season 4, where it's like Renekton, Irelia, there used to be Shyvana, but, you know, if there's no 2 versus 1, those are the dominant picks.
Right. And Dyrus and I were talking a little bit. He was saying he likes this comp because it's like something he would want to play, and I was saying I don't like this comp because it's something that feels very, one-dimensional, where Envy made some mistakes, and I think against a stronger team they would have got exploited because they get heavily outscaled in almost every single position, and they did make some mistakes, but they were able to recover because they're a stronger team.
I mean, yeah, it demands, basically, as you mentioned, you want those actual lane matchups, and then it demands that you get at least a little bit ahead, because when we look at the scaling of these two teams, it's pretty much all in favor of Phoenix1.
Right.
So the game goes late enough where you don't have enough dragons, you don't have the Baron or the Elder Drake, then you might not be able to close it out, but that's exactly what Envy did. In particular, small skirmishes around the map. This wasn't a game built purely on team fights. The first actual 5v5 team fight came 36, 37 minutes into the game in the top lane. 3 for 1 for Envy, finally cracking the base. This is really where they kind of had a handle on the game. They said, okay, at least we got the inhib down, we can pick up our Barons, and we can really move through.
The thing that stood out to me the most was the fact that Envy got so far ahead early game, but then they ended up lower CS than for the Sivir against Lucian, the Renekton versus Irelia. Like, Lucian had like a 30 CS lead, and then they 3-man tower dove it with Lissandra TP and Irelia coming in to pick up the Nidalee kill. Like, I feel like with that kind of advantage, they should just like roll over the game, and,
yeah,
speaks to it.
We spoke earlier about the fact that Envy seems to operate a little bit slower than the rest of the top tier teams. Statistically, 37 minutes and 51 seconds is their average game time in their wins, which puts them 6th in the league. So, not at the bottom of the table, but definitely when you consider that they are a top 3 team, tied for first right now in the league, for them to only be 6th in terms of pace definitely speaks to their slowness.
Right, and you see this really early game comp. It kind of even goes against what seems to be their own strength, which is, kind of getting these incremental advantages, but not as large as some of their other peers would. So you have what he said, Dyrus was saying, that they have this early game comp, but they're not crushing in CS. Like, they have objectives, they're head in turrets, but it's like a 2 or 3K gold lead at 20 minutes with that comp. That makes you sweat a little bit. But I mean, they were able to outplay Phoenix1 for the majority of the game. But when you start going against these other more skilled teams who aren't gonna make the same mistakes or punish you for yours harder, I think that's the concern.
I do want to jump back to that 36-minute team fight up in the top lane just to get a replay of it. We kind of look and see how, again, it's very clear that Envy understands how to close out the game, right? Grouping up on those turrets with the Baron buff, saying we need to make sure we crack this space, getting their TPs in just in time. So they do come out on top 3 for 1, but it is, as you mentioned, it's kind of strange that the first real 5v5 comes at 37 minutes into the game for a team that built an early game comp.
You can attribute part of that to Phoenix1 being smart and not taking 5v5s, because in their mind, they're like, okay, we're going to outscale, we're doing fine farming, let's just keep, play
Sivir Viktor wave clear, Sivir Viktor wave clear.
Right, and they gave us some Barons for it, which is a little bit too reserved. But the idea is right that you don't really want to 5v5 these guys until you hit your items.
But then once they get Elder Dragon and Baron, it's going to be really rough. But they did have the right idea.
Absolutely. We got to move to the player of the game. Ninja's going to snag that one in the mid lane with just some insane map pressure. For him, more the ability to roam, to be able to start those fights. We also saw in that second Baron that they picked up, him throwing out the ultimate on Zentinel, preventing that Kindred from getting in and even having the opportunity to contest a 50-50 smite. So good awareness there.
He got a lot of backline damage in those team fights too. You saw that, Phoenix1 was forcing that fight in the top lane. He comes in a little late, but that's what you want as Lissandra sometimes, is to come in and, you know, punish the over-engage, and he got a lot of AoE damage. Same thing at the game-winning fight. Phoenix1 engages, and he manages to get into the back line. So he played team fights really well.
I mean, it's kind of interesting, too, because earlier in this split already, Seraph played that Lissandra. So I really like, I keep going back to this, but I really like the of this EnVy roster. The fact that Seraph is showing a number of unique champions for himself, but then the fact that they're also sharing pools, right? I mean, you could put the Vladimir in the top or the mid lane now for this team. You could put a Lissandra in the top or the mid lane. I just imagine it's so hard to, as a coach, to go up against EnVy and try and decipher the champion select puzzle.
I actually think one of the weaknesses in that might be where Lissandra or Vlad isn't being picked top, because of the 2 versus 1. But in the 1 versus 1 meta, if they can get it every single time, it's a very, very strong draft, which is going to be the true test when they play against either Immortals or C9 or TSM, of course.
Yeah, that flex was really impressive because they take the Lissandra, bait out the Irelia pick, put the Lissandra mid, put the counter pick Renekton against it, which, you know, like he's saying, someone gets the 2v1 off, that whole draft, you know, shenanigan isn't really worth it. But when you do get it, it's pretty punishing.
Well, as we're talking about Seraph and his success and his unique champion pool, I just received word that Brandini is going to be subbing in for P1 in the top lane. So Zig out, Brandini in, which, you know, again, it's like, all right, maybe he has a better champ pool to deal with Seraph, but
I personally think that's kind of odd because I think Zig played pretty well that game, considering the circumstances he dealt with. Although I don't know if picking Irelia, now they're going to know not to pick Irelia into Lissandra. Maybe they'll change up their picks. Maybe it's the champion pool that might change their draft, not so much the play.
Yeah, I think Zig looked like he performed fine. I mean, he was getting pushed in early, but he gets Zentinel down there, and they punish the over-aggression by Seraph, and then he makes a TP play on the top side to, you know, help even out a dive that went poorly for, oh my God, EnVy. EnVy dove, and then they got turned. Sorry.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, as we close our discussion here on EnVy versus P1 over on the TSM Immortals game, TSM picking up an early first blood on an invade, Doublelift picking up the kill on Pobelter. So already off to a good start for TSM. They're going to be looking to close it out in a 2-0. Over here, we've got to hit a quick broadcaster cooldown, but when we return, Team EnVy will be taking on Phoenix1 in Game 2, so stick around. You don't want to miss it.